What's up, everybody? I hope you're doing great today. This is Raphael Garcia here for episode number 99 of the Let's Talk Wrestling podcast. Today is Sunday, October 10th, soon to be Monday, October 11th. This is a very late edition of the show because somebody forgot they had the tape today, and I'm doing it late. But it's still going to get done. So we're here to talk about quite a bit of different things in professional wrestling. But before we do, as always, I want to take the time to thank you for listening to this podcast wherever you may find it. We are on multiple outlets such as Anchor, Breaker, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Overcast, and Spotify as well. You can always go over to MMARatingsNet or .com to check out our flagship platform, where you can find this podcast, MMA Ratings Podcast, which is every Tuesday with myself and Shawan Humes, and all of the written content that comes out from our network. Check us out on social media as well, Instagram and Twitter, MMA Ratings Net in both spaces. Me, you can find me at rgarcia_sports, where I'm always talking about everything from politics, professional wrestling, sports, and anything and everything in between. Don't come with any foolishness, because you will definitely get blocked. But this is going to be a great conversation, because today I'm talking about a couple of different topics in wrestling. Tessa Blanchard's return and her involvement in WoW, and how they have already fumbled that, fallout from the WWE Draft, and what I would like to see with all the new people that have been moved around, and also some AEW developments. They have a lot going on there, and it's always good to talk about AEW because they are doing well when it comes to giving professional wrestling fans what they want, which is what we should always be talking about from both organizations. So let's go ahead and really jump into this show. And I want to start with the conversation around Tessa Blanchard, because this should not be difficult. Before I roll into that, I just want to say, if you do not know the challenges and the issues that Tessa Blanchard has found herself in, you can definitely Google. There's plenty of content out there. From Sean Ross Sapp, I think he interviewed her last year. I've written content about it. There's plenty to find. But in 2020, early 2020, Tessa was on a roll. January, she wins the Impact World Championship, becoming the first woman to hold that belt, and it should have been a big moment for women's wrestling, period. However, all these stories began coming out about Tessa from other women in professional wrestling about her toxic behavior. At WoW, she was a bully, making people cry, dressing people down, etc., and just behaving as a absolute toxic piece of shit. I mean, I think let me see, how old is Tessa Blanchard? Sorry for the brief moment of silence, but I wanted to check. Tessa Blanchard was 26 years old, so this time she was 25. And then on top of that, the big accusation came when it came out that she had a confrontation with La Rosa Negra, who is an Afro-Latina professional wrestler. I think she's Cuban, in Japan, where she actually spit on her and called her a nigger. So that should be an automatic disqualification from being involved with the better part of society until you show behavior. If you show behavior and show remorse for your actions, if you're in a public spotlight type of position. Unfortunately, that is not necessarily the case, because this week there was news. I mean, obviously there were already rumblings about the return of WoW as a promotion, which everyone understood. However, Tessa Blanchard's involvement with that was, I think it was leaked by Sean Ross Sapp first on Monday or Tuesday, and they made it clear that she's going to be involved as Wednesday came around. That's when they had their press conference this week. So everyone looked at that and they kind of collectively rolled their eyes and groaned, because Tessa has not apologized, not even not apologized. That's being nice. She has not acknowledged her behavior in any way, shape, or form. She made some statement after winning the Impact World title during that show, where she beat Sami Callihan, and basically made it clear that, she felt like she was being attacked, that There were detractors trying to come for her reputation and all this other loaded language that basically means I'm not going to apologize for what is being said about me. And then in September, she took to Instagram to post another post about her controlling her narrative. Again, just more language, making it clear that I'm not going to apologize for what I've been accused of, and you don't hold your breath. So no one should have held their breath. She was basically exiled from professional wrestling at a time where there were a lot of eyeballs on wrestling, not only what AEW was doing, but also what WWE, even though their viewership was dwindling, there wasn't anything else going on. There was a global pandemic going on, but professional wrestling fans were still consuming wrestling as best as they could. Tessa was basically pushed out. But she's popped back up with WoW. Now, WoW was in her corner as all this situation came out, even though she was accused of being hateful towards their staff members. They basically were asking other women not to tweet and post about the situation and not talk about her in a negative standpoint. And they've doubled down and stood behind her along the way. This week, they had a video made with Izzy, who was the young woman who was linked to Bayley while Bayley was in NXT. And from the looks of it, hasn't been the best teenager, it seems like. It seems like most people are not the greatest teenagers, and it seems like she's falling right behind Tessa in that stance. But she and Tessa made this video where at the end of it, Izzy kind of dismisses the idea of, oh, she's nuclear or whatever, as if it's a joke. So they're doubling down. On top of that, they released a shirt where they're talking about Tessa Blanchard being nuclear and that she is quote-unquote untouchable, that she has heat or whatever. But again, instead of acknowledging her behavior and expecting an apology for her behavior, they think it's better to use that as a tool to promote her and the promotion. That's just stupid. And it's this marketing, that's not how you do marketing in any way, shape, or form. So we continue to roll from there. And Tessa's also a casting director, which I find hilarious in so many different ways as they look for new talent within the wrestling industry and the wrestling space. She's listed as one of the casting directors in this situation, and it's just unfortunate that she's placed in such a position of power after all of this, but no one should be surprised. And there are so many different examples of people who have misbehaved in the public eye and continue to get opportunity after opportunity. Let's list some names. We have Don Imus, Howard Stern. We have any and everyone that's been involved in the Me Too movement. Like a lot of those guys, none of them got quote-unquote canceled. Cancel culture isn't a thing. There's so many different examples of individuals who have misbehaved and should be held accountable for their actions, but they don't. They may go away for a little while, but they come back and they almost act like nothing ever happened. Like, let's look at wrestling. The same thing is there. Hulk Hogan, The Ultimate Warrior, Roddy Piper, Randy Orton, so many different people that stand out. That's just from WWE. AEW, we can talk about them too. Sammy Guevara, Darby Allin, Justin Roberts, Chris Jericho. So many different people who have behaved in a way where you scratch your head like, yo, you aren't representing yourself in the best fashion. And yet you're getting another opportunity. Tessa Blanchard has proven that she is a racist with this behavior. There's no way you can look at anything that she's done and not say that. But no one should be surprised that she's being welcomed back, especially black people. We're not going to be surprised because we know at the end of the day that people don't care about black and brown individuals. And we don't, and the biggest voices in the room, usually white men and some white women, don't care about racism. They don't care about it in enough of a way to really want to improve in that space. I just had, at my last employer, had multiple conversations about this where you can do all the DEI work that you want to do, diversity and inclusion work that you want to do. It does not matter if the leadership, if you do that work, if leadership is not brought in and they're not of a space where they believe that that work is valuable. You cannot tell me that many of the voices in professional wrestling think that that work is valuable because of their behavior. There's so many different examples of that, and Tessa is just another one on that list. And it's unfortunate because there's so much professional wrestling, women's professional wrestling, that fans have made it clear that they want to see. I mean, I am one of the co-site experts over at Daily DDT, and there's so many different people that write about and work at that site that make it clear that they want to see more women's wrestling and they want to see more of it. But they're not going to watch WOW. They're not going to be involved with WOW just because this is the type of behavior that they've made it clear that they're okay with. And that's just unfortunate. It hurts everybody involved. I was at All Out this last month where Ruby Soho debuted as the Joker for in the Women's Casino Battle Royal. And before then, there were so many people chanting, "We want Tessa," but it was immediately, and when I say immediately, it was immediately shouted down with a "no, we don't" response. So people have made it clear that they want nothing to do with Tessa Blanchard back in professional wrestling. And on top of this story, AJ Mendez, formerly known as AJ Lee, is also involved with WOW, where I believe she is an executive producer. But WOW tweeted a picture of her and Tessa hugging at the press conference, and it's like, this is great. It's great to have AJ Mendez back. Doubt she'll be in the ring in any way, shape, or form. But what does it say that you're involved with this organization that has tied itself to this individual? What does that tell your fans that fall within a certain demographic? It's unfortunate, and I think that that's really going to be the case. It's unfortunate that's the situation that we're going to find ourselves in. So it's problematic, but no one should be surprised. No one's to be surprised that she's getting a second shot or another shot. I'm not even going to say a second shot, because that's just what happens when individuals show their true colors through their behavior, and there's no repercussions, there's no accountability to what they've done. This is just another example, and no one within a marginalized group is surprised about this as well, at all. So that's enough of that. Let's move into some other wrestling content to talk about. And I want to talk about WWE Draft and the fallout from that. So I'm going to read off the individuals from both rosters, and should I do it this way? I'm not going to read off both rosters. If you want to find the full Monday Night Raw and WWE SmackDown rosters, you can go over to Daily DDT and check out our draft results there. But there's a lot to look forward to with both of these rosters. And I was looking at them today because I was doing some writing about this, and it was like, which roster stands out to me? If you watch football or basketball or anyone, mainly those two, when they do their drafts, ESPN does a great job of this. Fox Sports does a great job of this as well too. But they have a lot of commentary around which team won the draft and which team did the most work to kind of rebuild their roster, which is the whole point of the draft. And I took that angle and I looked at these drafts and I looked at which show won the draft. And after going back and forth, I'm leaning towards SmackDown. Now, there's a lot to like on the Raw roster. Obviously, you have Big E at the top, where he is blowing up. I mean, WWE champion, everyone wanted to see. This weekend, the same day, I'm not even going to say this weekend, he was the hype man on Fox Sports for the Iowa Hawkeyes. Iowa and who did Iowa play? It was like a 3-5 game or something like that, but a big Iowa football game where he played. He was the hype man there. Then later that night, he is the hype man for both of the walkouts for Tyson Fury versus Deontay Wilder, a fight that people maybe are calling one of the greatest heavyweight boxing matchups of all time. Big E was involved with both on the same day, hours apart. That man is huge, and he's a big time draw. I mean, there's other aspects of the Raw roster as well that we should look out for. Obviously, Bobby Lashley. I'm interested in Austin Theory, seeing what he does. I know, he has accusations out against him, but just like I said earlier, people aren't held accountable for that. Damian Priest, obviously, the Street Profits are back on Raw. Finn Balor's back on Raw. I want to see what's more from him. Gable Stevenson, he was drafted. He has one more year of college before he is going to be brought in as a wrestler. So I want to see what that looks like as well too. Especially, man, that law change that allowed NCAA athletes to get paid for their likenesses. Ooh, boy, these guys are getting paid. But who else is on there? Bianca Belair was moved over to Raw. Carmella was moved over to Raw for the first time ever. She's never been a part of the Raw roster. Liv Morgan was moved over. I want to see if Mia Yim and Tegan Nox are actually even going to be used. So I'm looking forward to that as well too. And Keith Lee as well. I think he is still on. Yeah, he's still on Raw as well too. But the SmackDown roster is the one that really has my eye. And the reason why it does is because this really looks like a roster where there's a lot of potential across the board, where you have some individuals who can be elevated either as individuals or in a tag team situation and make this it could be built as a better professional wrestling show. And I've been meaning to write about the difference between professional wrestling and sports entertainment, because that's been a topic that's coming up a lot. That's how AEW markets themselves. And I feel like SmackDown with this roster could be better in that professional wrestling space than anything else that WWE is currently offering. Raw is a strong roster. They have a lot of star power, but it feels like more of the same to me, and it will continue to be more of the same. With SmackDown, there's so much more I want to kind of look forward to. Obviously, you have Roman Reigns at the top, but I'm hoping we get a situation where Roman and Kofi Kingston have an extended feud, and there's so many other names that you can see have potential opportunities with Roman that will immediately elevate them. Think about what Roman did with Jey Uso earlier this year, early in his run, where he helped elevate Jey to a main event status for an extended period of time. We could see that same situation with Kingston. Again, he's already been in main event status. Ricochet, Cesaro, Rich Holland. I want to see a singles run for Mustafa Ali. I want to see Nakamura drop the title and then maybe move into a main event picture there. I think Jeff Hardy is going to get another run at the top. Jeff Hardy's not my guy, but he is over no matter what, and I think that's always going to be the case. I wouldn't be mad if he got another run at the top there and found himself as a top contender to Roman Reigns. Drew McIntyre, you can expect him to be in that title picture as well too. So there's really a lot to unpack there about the way they're going to play around with the men's version of this roster. And let's not forget about the dark horse. I think that the drafting of Hit Row from NXT to SmackDown is an amazing dark horse pick. You get 4 individuals. You get Isaiah Swerve Scott, Top Dollar, Ashanti Adonis, and B-Fab. So you get 4. You get a main star in Swerve. You get a tag team in Dollar and Adonis. And then you get a women's performer in B-Fab. And I know she's still green and she has some growing to do, but that can be managed. That can be built up. I am interested in seeing what those 4 bring to the table in this situation. Everybody loved them in NXT. They were a hot group, and I'm glad so many people were down to support them. And I hope that it translates over to the main roster. I saw some people tweeting about the hate and the expectation that they're going to fail, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, that's going to be... no one should be surprised about that. People were saying that. No one should be. That's professional wrestling, and people are going to be haters across professional wrestling no matter what. But I want to see where these people are. I want the most. Imagine a match with Ricochet versus Swerve. Imagine that match. I'm sure we've seen other iterations of that. I didn't watch too much of Lucha Underground, but they both spent time there. Imagine that match, period. Give me that. Give me Top Dollar and Ashanti Adonis making a run in a tag team division. Give me them against the New Day. There's so much opportunity there, and I think that is the group that I'm looking forward to the most. I also wrote here 3 things I want to see happen after the draft, and outside of what I've already mentioned. I want to see the tag team division get reestablished across all of their brands. Tag team wrestling works. It's interesting. I wanted to be a tag team wrestler at one point in time. AEW has really kind of cornered that market, but WWE should not suck as much as they do when it comes to tag team wrestling. Who are the tag team champions for SmackDown? Oh, the Usos, correct. So tag team wrestling should work. Mustafa Ali and Mansoor, I can see that really having a good, strong run there. Obviously, you have the New Day, you have Hit Row, like I just mentioned, Humberto Carrillo and Angel Garza. That's the 2 I'm looking at closest. I want to see what they look like in a year from now. I'm glad that they finally paired them together after years of people wanting to see them be paired together. It's finally happened. So I'm looking forward to that too as well. That's one thing I want to see. I want to see the tag team division kind of get a boost. I want to see more women on WWE, not the same women I know, and not the same women in the title picture. I mean, we have Bianca Belair as the outlier. Rhea Ripley was the outlier for a little while. Asuka's hurt. But outside of them, it's been Charlotte, Becky, it'll be Bayley when she comes back, and obviously Sasha. We've had Carmella in that picture as well too. I want to see some more women kind of rolled into that. Xia Li's been drafted. I loved everything about Xia Li in NXT, the spooky shit, whatever. But the fact that she was kicking people's heads off, sign me up for all of that. So I hope that presentation of her doesn't change too much, and she gets keep that intense side of her. I want to see more of her. Toni Storm, she should be a star. I've really been pushing people to write about her. We've had a couple pieces written. I think I did one about them missing out on pushing her as a main event star. She was already been booted out of the Crown Jewel or the Queen's Crown tournament. She's already been booted out of that, unfortunately. But she's main event. I mean, she won the Mae Young Classic, former NXT UK champion. I don't understand how you get to the main roster and people look at you like, oh, she's not main event caliber. She's main event caliber right now. And she's like 23, 24, super young. Get that woman in the main event. I'm not going to front. I'm not the biggest fan of Shotzi Blackheart, but people love her. And again, I always stand on the fact that people who look different from on the women's roster, I'm a fan of them. That's why I was a big fan of Ruby when I first saw her. Shotzi, I'm a fan of hers because she looks so much different. Kaden Carter as well. She looks so different. That works for me. I think that really causes a lot of women to stand out. Or it helps stand out. It helps you stand out when you're on this women's roster. Naomi's another one, and she's a big name that's on that roster, and I expect them to better utilize her as well too. So better utilization of the women's roster across both Raw and SmackDown is something that I definitely want to see. I want to see BFAB's interaction with the likes of Sasha Banks, Tony. I already said that. Charlotte. What are those interactions going to be like? Shayna Baszler is there, and she and Charlotte Flair have to have a lengthy feud, main event feud there. Those 2 women can go. I want to see Shayna return to who she is and who we've all kind of grown to love, and I think this is an opportunity to do that. That's the second thing I want to see more of. The third is I would like to see this stay separate. We do not need to see a shakeup. We don't just need to see a brand invitational. We don't need to see people getting jumped over every week to kind of bump the ratings. We don't need to see that. I don't even want to see Survivor Series, to be honest. I would like if there were brand-specific storylines that cause like 4-on-4, different types of matches that don't necessarily have to be at 5-on-5, brand-to-brand supremacy or whatever the hell that shit's called, because they're not going to be moved over until October 23rd because Crown Jewel's on the 22nd. Survivor Series is on the 21st. It doesn't make any sense that these people all of a sudden loyal to this brand that they've been on for 3 weeks, 4 weeks. We're not stupid. So I want to see these brands be more is agnostic the right word to use there? Be more specific and be more kind of put on the island from each other. I'm not sure if that's going to happen, but that's what I would like to see. And a prediction of where it will be or the impact from this draft 1 year from today. Let's see. So a prediction of where we will be. On Raw, I will say that Bianca Belair is a champion again. Alexa Bliss will be a champion again at some point too. I guarantee you that. We'll finally get to see Mia Yim on television as Mia Yim on the main roster. Let's see. I think we're going to get a feud between Big E and Keith Lee as well too. I think we're gonna have that happen. And I won't be surprised if we get another Finn Balor versus Karrion Kross feud as well too. So, because I know that they want to get the most that they can out of Karrion Kross, and I think Finn Balor is somebody that can help with that. Maybe. That's one for that's a year out prediction for Raw. For SmackDown, well, as much as I don't want to see it, we're gonna get way too much of Roman versus Drew. But I think we're going to get Roman in some other feuds as well, too. I think he will have a feud against Kofi Kingston, and I can see a feud with him and Ricochet. Nakamura is someone that I think I can see getting elevated to the main event picture in a year. And over on the women's side, I know we're going to end up with Sasha and Charlotte at some point in time, but I think Naomi is going to be someone who's elevated to the main, not the main roster, but like the main event picture as well, too. And I believe that Shayna Baszler is finally going to get a pretty decent run as well too as a singles performer. That's really what I think. I think that looking forward a year, we won't be as upset with the outcome of the draft as we were with the 2020 edition of it, because they just got so lazy with all the other stuff they tried to book on top of the draft. So the last topic I want to talk about, just some different things going on in AEW. As I've mentioned, I believe AEW is continuing to do well in professional wrestling. They're doing a lot of different things that are really working for them. There are some things I don't like, as I've always said, but more often than not, I do enjoy AEW content when I catch it, because I want to talk about Rampage first. That Friday time slot, oh boy. Friday night at 10 o'clock is a very tough time. That's usually my night out. This week, I happen to be in the house, and so I watched. But usually, I'm not home Friday night at 10 o'clock, so I am not watching professional wrestling. I'm not watching SmackDown Live, and I'm not watching Rampage Live either. And you kind of see those numbers dwindling, even though they have good content on the show. So I wonder what they're going to do about that. I saw some people talk about moving it to 7 o'clock. And again, 7 o'clock could work better sometimes depending on what I'm doing, because some nights we may go out late, especially as the pandemic lessens and numbers change and we're in a position that more things are opening up. But Friday nights are not a good spot for me, especially right now. Friday at 10 o'clock. Doesn't look like that's really going to work long term, but we'll see what happens. I don't know if they're going to go to a second hour. I hope they don't. They had a 2-hour show a couple of weeks ago, and it definitely dragged. Their 1-hour shows feel like a sprint, and they fly by, which is something that I really like. Something that reminds me of like the old NXT days. But there's good and bad with this time slot. But right now, it's just not working for me, and it's clearly not working for a lot of the people as well too, because their viewership is dropping off. I want to talk about the TBS title as well. That title was announced and it was revealed, I guess, this past week. People knew it was coming, and I'm looking forward to this tournament. I think this is going to be a big opportunity for AEW to really look at how they've booked their women and fix a lot of it. Give them some solid time. Get more of the women on television. I hope these matches are not on Dark and Dark Elevation. Get them on Dynamite. Get them on Rampage. They can have one a night on Rampage and 2 on Dynamite every week. It's not that hard. But there's so much talent in that women's roster that they can do a full, developed tournament across their big platforms. Who should be the TBS champion? I am agreeing with a lot of people that it should be Jade. They see Jade as a superstar because she is, but she has to be kept as far away from Britt Baker as possible right now. Reason being because they're not taking that title off of Baker anytime soon, and in doing so, they can protect her a little bit. They can keep her having these squash-ish type of matches, and keeping her away from Baker is important if they're going to do that. If not Baker, a Big Swole can be a champion here. Ruby could be a champion. Like, this is going to be like a workers title. So like a Ruby could be a champion here. Who else? Let me give you one other name. A Tay Conti could be a champion here as well too. So I want to see a Serena Deeb. Serena Deeb would be great as the first TBS champion. Like, let a worker have that belt and go on a run with it. And I think that would be a great way to kind of reintroduce them. I want to talk a minute about Daniel Garcia, and that's going to lead into the next topic as well too, because Daniel Garcia has been killing it. I think he's 23 years old. He had a match with CM Punk this on Friday, and then Minoru Suzuki as well. I didn't know who he was until AEW, but this dude, he's good. He's good. He's like catching a young talent in another sport, someone that you look at like, yo, this guy is well beyond his years. And let me see how long he's been doing it, because I know he is. Let me see, Daniel Garcia. I spelled Daniel wrong. All right, Daniel Garcia is 23 years old and has 4 years of experience, and he's from Buffalo, New York. Okay, so I'm liking what I'm seeing from him. He had a match on, look at this. So he had a match on Dynamite this was Rampage against CM Punk. Then he had a match against Alex Shelley, a match against Suzuki, and then a match against Davey Richards on the 6th, 7th, 8th, and 10th. 6th, 7th, 8th, and 10th. I mean, that man is a worker. I'm excited for him, and I want to see more of this guy. There's a lot of people on the AEW roster, and I've talked about this, written about this, that they're leveraging their young talent in a way that WWE is not. They may be trying to with NXT 2.0, but it's not going to work in the same way. They have men and women on the AEW roster 30 years younger, 30 years of age or younger, who we may be seeing in this industry for 10, 15, 20 years, and you can build around them. And it just takes me to the next topic about who are the pillars of AEW. And you see them talking about this on the show, and they've thrown around a lot of names. And I've sat back and thought to myself of who are the individuals that could be considered AEW homegrown talent, and they are like the foundation. Like, you look at them for the future. I think that you got to include Britt Baker in that conversation. A lot of people are throwing around men's names, but her ring work sometimes doesn't cut it to me, but she's definitely over. She's definitely a star. So for them. So I think that Britt should be the pillar. She's the first one that came to mind for me. You have MJF. He's not my cup of tea, but people love him. They love to hate him, and they hang on his every word. His matches are what they are, and you kind of need that type of character from a professional wrestling standpoint, from a promotional standpoint. So he deserves to be on that list. I'm going to put Sammy Guevara on mine because Sammy he could be a babyface superstar, and he could be a heel superstar. Either or for an organization for years to come. He's in that group for me. And then the fourth right now is Jungle Boy. That's the guy that comes to mind because I think he's that babyface superstar. He's that John Cena-esque long-term superstar that can remain a babyface year over year. and excels in that position. Those are my 4 pillars when I think about that from a AEW standpoint. One individual whose name came up that I did not mention, Ricky Starks, and I knew of Ricky Starks before AEW. He's actually one of the reasons why I was watching NWA for a brief stint before he made the jump to AEW, and he considers himself an AEW talent, so no problem. He is the next pillar on that list. Ricky Starks is a main event talent, and I hope he is okay from an injury standpoint, because that neck injury, you can't fuck around with neck injuries. You can't. They shorten people's careers. They shorten people's lifespans. I hope he is okay from that standpoint, so we can see as much of him wrestle the way he wants to wrestle for an extended period of time. This dude's a main event level talent, and when him and CM Punk have their angle together, that is going to be must-see TV. As I've said about Ricky in the past, he is the first. Pac was the first individual. Ricky Starks was the second. Anytime they're on television, I don't care what else is on. I'm stopping and I'm watching, because I want to see everything that they do. And I've been like that with Ricky since NWA. I'm a big fan of his. And he is a main event level talent that I think AEW has to push to the moon. If they're going to have someone that can be their first black champion, it's Ricky Starks. I thought it was Scorpio Sky, but they're not. I mean, they have seemed to have lost all interest in doing a lot with Scorpio Sky. Ricky Starks may be that guy. And that also brings me to my final topic of the night when it comes to AEW, and is Brian Cage their first example of someone who's been misused? And I say that because there was a lot of back and forth the last week about his tweets and about whether or not he's angry with his booking. A lot of people are looking at his angle with Ricky Starks and they're just like, yo, just get it over with. Like, to move on from each other. And I feel the same way. Ricky Starks pinned him clean on pinned him in that street fight on Friday. So I hope that angle is over. He's beaten him twice. Like, let's go somewhere else. I don't know where you go with Brian Cage, because no one wants to see him in a title picture. No one wants to see him in a TNT title picture. I mean, I would have been okay with a little bit of a feud between him and Miro, but Miro doesn't have that belt anymore either. So I'm not quite sure what you want to do with him. Brian Cage looks like a WWE guy to me. Imagine Cage and Lashley doing what they've done before in WWE. I could see that. Cage and Roman. Cage and Keith Lee. Cage and Big E. I see him there more so than I see him in WWE in AEW. And maybe he'll be the first big one to jump from one promotion to another in that fashion. Most people have gone from WWE to AEW. But I could see him being in that situation, because I'm not saying he's misused, but I think that there's a conversation there that could be had, and it's not as clear cut as people would think. So, with that in mind, I want to thank you for listening to episode 99 of the Let's Talk Wrestling podcast. It's funny, next week we'll be doing episode 100, and I have no idea what I'm going to do with that show. I'm actually sometimes I'm still kind of surprised that I'm still taping episodes at this point in time, but that's neither here nor there. We're coming up on episode 100, so as always, I will figure out something special to do for that day. But until then, I thank you all for everyone who's taken the time to listen to an episode. Like, share, and subscribe. As always, again, you can find us across multiple outlets and multiple platforms. You find us on MMA Ratings on YouTube. Please be sure to share and subscribe, and check out our Tuesday show there as well too. MMA Ratings Net across all of your favorite streaming platforms, Instagram and Twitter, MMA Ratings Net in both spaces, MMA Ratings Net and .com online for our flagship. Myself, you can check me out at rgarcia_sports. And again, as always, I thank you for taking the time to listen to the show. Everyone stay safe and have a great week.